Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Rockin the Love. I'm Robyn.
And I'm Gil. And we are happy to be with you today. How's it
I don't know
going?
what I'm doing okay, but your sound went away for a minute there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad to be here in case somebody didn't hear us. We are coming to you on what appears to be a little bit chilly day wherever we are, and we're excited. So
And for
we
those
need
of you
everybody
who
to.
don't know, we are in different places. I am in California. Gil is in New Mexico, and yet by the power of technology, here we are together. Isn't it grand?
It's grand. It's lovely.
It's a grand rising. All right. So we are rocking the love, and that's what we believe. Tell them why we're rocking the love, Gil.
Because our whole show is about relationship, and rocking the love is the idea that all of our relationships are an opportunity to love, whether it's with ourselves, with our job, with our spouse, with whoever it is. Um, we have the opportunity to rock the love all the time and make everybody that we're in relationship with have a better day, if you will.
Yeah. So if you've never been here before, welcome. And if you are returning with us, welcome as well. Feel free to like us and add us to your social media stuff. And we promise you that it will be entertaining one way or another. So since we're apart, we like to check in and see how each other's week was. How's your week?
My week has been good. It's a lot going on, but some great new stuff happening. And we've had a little rain here, but primarily every time we get a little rain, it's nighttime, and you get up in the morning and things look a little wet, and then it's kind of pseudo sunny during the day with clouds, and then it gets a little wet at night. So it's kind of nice. So it's been a lot happening, but feels like it's moving really well. So, how about you?
Well, that's good because usually when there's a lot happening, that freaks you out.
Yeah,
It causes you to spin.
yeah, it does. It does. You're right.
I am right. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging.
Oh, oh, wait, you're always right.
No, not always. Not always. It's not good if you don't leave space for others to join the party.
Oh, okay, okay.
I just like
Well,
to be on the cutting edge.
okay.
Anyway, but yeah, it's been raining here, and I've had several calls, and so has my sister. I mean, people are calling like, "Are you guys okay?" Because hearing about flooding, and you were telling me about some video with cars going over,
Yeah, it's just crazy.
cars getting swept away, and we were
Yeah,
getting like all these notices on our phone, like all these danger, danger, Will Robinson type notices, don't go out, blah, blah, blah. In like the middle of nothing, your phone's like the sirens going off and all of that. So it's been interesting because to me, it just looked like it was raining. I mean, I didn't notice anything, extraordinary about it, but apparently there's a lot of stuff going on.
flash flood potential and things like that you don't realize how important or how possible it is when you're just experiencing the rain. And if it's the same, you're getting a good hard rain, then if it's happening above you as well, then that creates potential for a lot of water flow. And I think California has been in that kind of a boat the last few weeks.
Oh, you're like a little meteorologist there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a meteorologist.
Okay.
Why
All
we're
right.
talking about rain and I talked about a boat. I mean, it all makes sense.
All right. Well, yeah, but it's been a good week. It's other than that, I mean, I feel like I'm getting a little more settled. I'm excited. I'm going to see um, a friend today who we actually met in the middle last week for breakfast, but she's coming down this way to see her family. And my goddaughter came down to visit me, and we went to some fun local wineries. And it's like an exploration. I still feel like I'm on vacation, but apparently I'm here on vacation long term. So I'm just getting used to all that there is. So that's been super great.
Well, I am going out this week on Sunday. We're going to dinner, special dinner for folks at the center, and then I'm going to see. Um, uh, oh my gosh, I can't think of it right now.
It's only a
Uh,
good story if you can think of it, honey.
oh my gosh, yeah. Well, anyway, I'm going. I'm going to a show.
Like a
So
play.
yeah, like a play show.
Oh, how nice for them.
Yeah, yeah. I was invited, and I'm going, and I'm very excited. It'll be fun.
Good, 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 good.
Yeah.
That's nice. Um, yeah. Okay. So no, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about going up to Oakland to go to a show with my friends, but I'm not doing it. So I don't even need to talk about it. I just don't have
Okay.
to do it.
All right.
So, all right, enough about us. Some good news.
Some good
Where
news.
in the world is good news happening? We know it's happening all over the place, and we like to acknowledge it. So, give me something good.
All right. So I'm going to talk about some good news that comes out of India, and actually it seems to include a major portion of the world. As many of you may know, both of my parents were suffered from Alzheimer's, and that is what ultimately uh, ended their lives. And this is a story about a kid who was 12 when his grandmother, she was diagnosed like a year or so before, but he was there when she went into the kitchen and made some tea and then left the gas on. And he decided that there must be ways to help make folks safer. And he always into robotics, et cetera. So he kind of put that on the side, and he created some kind of a thing that people can wear, which will alert people if they wander off or if they fall or those kinds of things. But he went to an Alzheimer's facility and talked to people. They're like, no, you can't put it on a watch. They'll take it off. You can't do this. You can't do that. So he really did his research to figure out how to really make it usable. Then apparently he won some contest through Samsung and got $120,000 in seed money plus mentors from Samsung to help him create it. And his goal is to finish high school and then over the summer get it figured out to be into production by fall.
That's great.
Yeah, pretty
Why are you
crazy.
laughing?
Hmm?
Why are you laughing?
I just, it's a lot. It's a lot. But, a lot of things came together for him. And he's, his goal is to get this thing done and out there and then go back to studying more robotics because that's where his real love is.
Yeah, that's a good summer job.
Yeah. Well,
Nice.
yeah, man.
So, welcome, John. See you out there. Mine, I decided to go really simple this week. I kept looking for something, I don't know, deeper. But
Uh-huh.
I love this story about a woman in New Jersey who was in the dollar store kind of place with her kid, and her kid was about 2.5, and just lost it as a kid and went crazy as a 2.5-year-old does. And as a parent, you're usually so frustrated, and yet you're on stage and there's people around you and you don't know what to do, and you don't know all of those things. And so she was trying to calm her kid, and the checker started talking to the kid and asked the kid if she wanted to help scan items with her. And the kid, of course, was like, yeah. And she asked the mom, can I pick her up? And there's this video of her holding the kid and the kid scanning the items and totally calm, and they said they even stayed for some more customers. But it was such a symbol to me of like, it doesn't have to be deep. It doesn't have to be heroic. You don't have to dive into an ocean to save a child. You don't have to, you don't have to do those huge things. It's like those simple things that we can really do in each and every moment and where we are that really make a difference. And so I just thought it was a beautiful story. So
it's a great story.
Yeah.
It's a great story, because you hear those things and you see people get frustrated with, that kind of a situation when they're outside of it. They're not the parent, they're not the kid, but they get frustrated because the kid's noisy, blah, 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 blah. But instead to respond with, how can I help in this situation? What might I be able to do to move in another direction and make the kid feel better and everybody else feel better?
Right.
Pretty cool.
And to be the person working, like, I make faces at kids or play with them all the time in lines or in restaurants, whatever. But I mean, to have it be, to take that on at your job and it was just a normal thing for her. And you know what I mean? So you can make a difference and it doesn't have to look heroic. Wow. So many people have joined us during our good news. We have brought in the good people during the good news. So welcome Myrna, welcome Kevin, welcome Wayne. So glad to see you all. So glad you're here for today's topic because I know you all will have something to say. Our title for today is
The Time Is Now.
There you go. The time is now. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things, but basically in relationships when we choose to tell our partners, our employers, our significant coworkers, whatever it is, what we hold back and when we choose to talk about things, and basically the power behind that. Is that correct?
We're going to explore that whole thing and see what shows up. Just see if we can learn something from each other.
Well, you see who's out there in the audience that have revealed themselves. There's definitely things to learn.
That's okay. What I figured.
So let's take a break and let's come right back right here on New Thought Media Network. See you soon.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
and we're back. I am Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and this is Rockin the Love. You joined us here on Wednesday in January 2024.
It's true.
Woo! 2024. Did
So
you ever think you'd make it to 2024? I mean, did you ever think about that?
Well, it's an interesting question because I never thought I'd be alive necessarily at the turn of a century.
Right.
Not logically, but like when you used to hear about like in the 18 blah blah blah, it was like, oh my God, who lived then? And now people will say the same. so that is an interesting question. But here we are, all of us. Thank goodness. Thank you for saying yes to continuing this journey in 2024. And I want to start with last week's show because I feel like our last week's show, John and Randy really set the tone. Our guests were a couple who've been married going on 25 years. And I feel like it really set the tone to talk about this week's topic because I feel like everything they talked about in their relationship felt so intentional.
Yes.
And I feel like today's topic of when and how you bring up things and being in the moment and wherever it leads us, I just feel like that takes a commitment to your intention on some level.
Yes, it takes a commitment to takes a commitment to a lot of things, to yourself, to trusting the situation, to trusting your intuition, to trusting the universe that whatever shakes out is good, and all of that kind of thing. I think it can be a challenge to put yourself out there at times.
Right. So you came up with this topic basically. So why don't you talk a little bit about it, and so I know where we're going here.
Well, I was just thinking about how do we communicate with one another, and how do we take advantage of the moment and actually share what's going on, or deal with the things that seem hard, or take care of the things that just need to happen without putting it off, without thinking that somehow it'll be easier or better or whatever tomorrow. So that was kind of where I was coming from.
So, but you're talking about things that one partner may find challenging.
Right. Things that, you don't really want to communicate.
Sorry.
Yeah. They're challenging in your head, at least. They may or may not be challenging, but for whatever reason they feel uncomfortable, or they're, they may present a real challenge, and you may know that. You may be really challenging the other person in some way.
Yeah, and I think there's a question of in a partnership, in a relationship. Obviously, it's different. I think if it's your love relationship, your work relationship, your family relationship. I mean, I think there's different levels, but I think first you have to begin with being really present to, those relationships, first of all, and intentionally, like what is important in the moment, and or are some things better left unsaid, at least until you have the presence to be able to speak to them in a mindful way.
Right. Often it's that if we do put them off because we're processing figuring out how to work through it ourselves, work through our own stuff around it before we put it all out there to somebody else as if it's all their problem, then that's good time spent. That's time is now for that. But sometimes we just go to avoid it.
Right. So okay. So let's just talk about relationship for now. Okay.
Okay.
Because if we try to branch it out, I think there's different nuances to it, right? So when you're in a relationship and you don't speak up, then obviously things shift, right?
Yeah. When we don't say what's true for us, then it's easy to become resentful, perhaps. It's easy to start feeling disconnected because it feels like there's something that's not being communicated.
Yeah, I think that your couple connection is broken, right? I mean, that intimacy suffers because there's something that's there's static on the line.
Right. Because something feels uncomfortable. Something doesn't feel right because it's the proverbial elephant in the room kind of idea sometimes, when certain things aren't dealt with, but everybody knows they're there, but nobody wants to really talk about it. That's one kind of thing.
That's one thing. And then I think personally, for the person that's holding, well, maybe for both, but for the person primarily that's holding back or that isn't speaking up, then I think it also, can lead to some kind of anxiety or, discomfort, depression, just that, I don't know, even self-esteem, you start to doubt yourself and, depends how you take things on, right? But I mean, I think that you begin to doubt who you are and, if you're doing it right.
Right. And if we don't honor what needs to come out, what needs to come up for ourselves, then we start to run into more of that, where we feel like we've put ourselves in a corner, we're not good enough, or maybe those feelings are driving some of it that's keeping us from sharing what's going on. So yeah, that's an important point.
So why don't we speak up? I mean, fear, right? Obviously, fear plays a big one. I think there's certain. I was reading when I was researching this something about there's 5 basic kind of zones.
Uh-huh.
Are you shaking your head because you know this, or you?
Nope. No, I'm shaking my head because it sounds interesting.
Oh, I was hoping you could jump in because I don't know what I'm talking about. But there's basically like 5 different zones kind of things about how we relate, sort of. And one is we want to be accepted, we want to be accepted. I'm going to go with that one because it's the one I know. And so so I think one of the reasons we don't speak up when we don't speak up, we're afraid, right? We're afraid that our partner's not going to accept it or not going to like it, or they're going to have a different opinion of us.
Well, ultimately that they won't accept us. I think, the fear is about being accepted oneself somehow. Right. And that can be, in sharing something with a partner that's about oneself that's scary, or it can be sharing something that's sort of like confronting something in the relationship that's scary. It doesn't have to be like, that it doesn't always have to be the confronting something or whatever. It can just be about sharing honestly about what's happening in one's life.
Yeah. I think some of the, like, part of it is, and then there's the other part too, is like not wanting to upset your partner, or being afraid they won't understand, or, being afraid you'll end up in an argument.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that goes to those things of why do we not do it at a particular point in time? Sometimes we're trying to figure out when's a good time. When might they be? Let's have some ice cream and then have a chat. I mean, that sort of let's make it better.
Yeah. Or also the feeling of it won't make a difference.
Oh yeah.
Why should I do this? It won't make a difference.
So
Ernest says, afraid of not being understood, judged, criticized, and then being on the defense. Yeah.
When one withholds info, that is the beginning of building a case. That's interesting. That's an interesting idea, Myrna. Building a case, like you're holding back stuff because you're like putting it in your back pocket to pull out later when you need it, kind of thing. That's an interesting concept.
That is an interesting concept. I'd
love to hear more about that, Myrna, because I'm curious. Correct. She says correct. Okay. So sort of what I'm hearing is that thing where we like just put it back there, and then one day we say, you did this on this day and you did that on that day and you did this when we're on vacation, and you're a loser. Whatever the thing is,
you always do.
You always. Yeah.
That you always is like the kiss of death.
Yeah.
Or you never. You always and you never.
True.
So what happens when we don't speak up?
Well, then the fear wins some degree, because we're afraid of being misunderstood. Then we don't know whether or not we're going to be understood. So now our own minds can make the decision about how well people really don't understand me, even though that may not be true. But our fear of finding out that could be true stops us, but that only feeds our story that's already true. I think we have the story already. That's where the fear comes from. If we didn't have the story that somehow we wouldn't be accepted or something horrible is going to happen or whatever, if that story wasn't already present, then what would we be afraid of? Like if I pick up a lottery ticket on the way home and I win $1 million and I call you up and say, I won $1 million. Why am I not afraid to tell you? Because I can't think of a scenario where that's a bad thing. I don't have a story about you somehow not appreciating that or not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have any preconceived notions of people's reaction. Yeah, so I think that's important, because I think that speaks to what we learned growing up about speaking up. Like what kind of communication happened in your household? How did your parents relate? What were you taught in terms of I don't know, children should be seen and not heard. Well, did that cut off your voice? On some level, how did they communicate, and and what do you take forward from that? I mean, I think that and then there's each person's parental upbringing that plays into it.
Right. I was going to say my mom was kind of famous for the silent treatment, and that can be tempting at times. I'm done with you. I don't want to deal with you. So I don't want to talk.
See, and using us as an example, I'm going to use us. That makes perfect sense, because I've never heard you say that, but your previous wife would hang up on you and cut off all the time.
Right.
Right. And so
Right.
at some level that was recreated. And in our relationship, so when I shut down and go away, you're not affected by it on some level. I mean, I know you are, but you know what I mean. You don't respond to it. You don't respond to it. Whereas my need is that you respond to it so that I don't have to be away, but you're like, okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Well, you know what? But I think it's even deeper than that. I think it's that I'm also angry and and it triggers that point where it pisses me off that people do that. So because I'm mad, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. Does that make sense?
It does. So going back to like last week with John and Randy, what I really heard was their intention. I'm sorry, O'Neill and Randy. What I really
Yes,
heard,
O'Neill and Randy. Yes, please.
what I really heard was, the commitment to understand those points in their marriage, in their relationship that really where those things happen, so that the other person is committed to nurturing, being nurturing.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I heard that on a couple levels. One was being committed to their own personal psychological, spiritual, whatever growth and movement and paying attention to themselves. And at the same time, really being aware of, as that kind of thing is brought forward, how can I as a partner hold a space that would help them rather than make it rather than just either not help them at all or make it worse, kind of thing.
Right. And in the communication thing, like thinking about the way you were raised and your parents and how they communicated and the way my parents communicated or my mom communicated, it's so totally different. Right? Because you were from the house where your mom gave you the silent treatment, and they probably didn't talk a lot about things in front of you, right? And I was from the hippie house where we talked about everything. I mean, it's like nothing was a thing. We talked about it, and we got it out of the way. We didn't hold back. It was just me and my mom for so many years that it was like girlfriends. We chatted, and it wasn't a thing, and it was done. Whereas, so we're coming from two different sides of the pond, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is actually quite revealing.
Right? So thank you all for being here for our personal therapy session. No.
Yeah,
Welcome,
Shay. They're all on staff.
We see you out there, Shay. Good to see you. And just sharing what Myrna wrote. I love it. Just today, I told my son, you can always talk to me, even if you think I will not like what you say. I promise I will listen. I agree that the ways we move in the world, it is the reactions to childhood learnings. Yeah. Yeah. God bless.
What a gift when we can be aware of that. The sooner we can become aware of that, particularly if we are at some point in our lives raising children, the better it is, because the more we can actually incorporate it into our parenting. I mean, I know that there's a lot of stuff I've learned since I was raising my kids, and it would have been helpful. Would have been helpful to them. It would have been helpful to me. It would have been helpful to the marriage. All that stuff.
Yes. And so now the trick is it helpful to the God kids?
Right. Right.
Are you putting it into play with the youth group or with the God kids or with, the grandkids?
Right. Right. It's not that there's not an opportunity to still utilize it. That's absolutely true. And to share it. And I think that's been a big goal. And interestingly enough, it's also it's also a point where the time is now eludes me because I have so much fear around my relationships with family. So I feel stuck a lot of the time. And so I don't end up sharing some of the good stuff that I have learned because I'm afraid to even put it out there.
And so I think that that's really important. And going back to the fear, I think, the fear is a signal that you need to deal with the core issue. And that's really important for all of us. I think when we feel that fear, yes, it might be about sharing information, but it's also that fear of, are they going to leave me? Are they still going to love me? Am I, is this valid? What if this happens? So it's all that fear of losing or of what someone would think. And so that's the issue. It's not the moment and what you have to say necessarily, right? Would you agree?
Yes, I would absolutely agree. I mean, I think you hit it on the head when you said that, the fear, when the fear shows up, it is something that is telling us something. It's telling us that we have a story we're telling ourselves. It's telling us that there's something we need to be with and confront within ourselves and perhaps within our relationships with others.
Yeah. And it's just John's acknowledging, I love that a grown man can outright state his fear, gives me permission to talk openly about mine.
Thank you, John.
Yep. Great. Thank you, John. And if you'd like, I can have him talk more about his fears. I can have him openly state some more fears to help you along. But yeah, but I want to just say, and it's not. I think what's important in moving towards talking in your relationship is also noticing that, like, when you can uncover those feelings, that it may not mean that you have to talk specifically about an issue that's on your mind, but it does mean that maybe you want to take a smaller step and explore, even talk about how difficult it is for you to formulate and state your needs to your partner or to whoever you're in relationship with. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's even a place to ask for help. For example, if I'm having a hard time talking to Gil about something, if I was to just talk about that, it's hard for me to talk. And, how can he help me? And, it would be, it would be really great if we could start this conversation off, in this way.
So it's like taking that step back. Maybe the time is now is somehow has that feeling like, okay, we got to do it. But maybe the thing is, the time is now to figure out what you need to do, to figure out how you need to communicate, what needs to happen. And that doesn't always mean, let's go out and drop the nuclear bomb. It means let's start at the beginning and figure out how to move forward. You know?
Right. Myrna says, I can easily do this with my son. When I speak with him, there's no story, no energy behind. This does not happen in certain grown-up conversations. The stories exist in the grown-up world. Oh no.
Yeah, this grown-up thing is a misnomer. I don't think we're always really, pardon me, growing up as much as we think.
Well, and I was going to say, go ahead.
I was just going to say what our producer said. It's important in relationships to notice how your parents communicated to each other and notice if it is helpful in the present moment. And that's really true too, is to notice, like, where where is my process coming from? Is it really my process figured out, or am I just acting out something that is familiar? And is that really the way it needs to be right now? Is that really helpful?
Yeah. And, it's all kind of, I feel I get this image of like Dora the Explorer. It's all kind of like an explorative journey, right? Because I think that when we become aware of these certain things, and we can decide how to work with them, then we're able to risk being vulnerable. And that's really what this is about, right? I mean, on some level, sharing our feelings or what's going on is about being vulnerable and our emotions. And when we do that, truly, then we open up the door to receiving more of what we want, more caring, more understanding, more, embracing. And so I think that, it's leading us sort of to that reward. And as we're saying about the parental thing, we're taking steps in some ways to break that cycle, and to break that cycle of moving through old hurts and old learnings and stopping them from lingering.
Well, it's moving from reaction to action. When we simply react to a situation, then it's it's the lizard brain. It's the stuff that just comes up from the stored files. There's no filter. It's just dump it out. If we act, then we actually intentionally figure out what needs to come out and how we can communicate something to someone in a way that's productive and helpful. One other thing I'm noticing in our conversation is we have talked a lot about fear, but I realized that, there's a whole lot of guilt and shame that plays a role in communicating or not communicating, because there's my history, there's what I've done before, there's whatever that is. And it's not even necessarily what it is, it's how I perceive it and whether or not I can forgive myself for it. So, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Interesting. I was wrapped up in a thought while you were saying that about a friend who's going through a rough patch right now and has just had a breakup, and it came out of nowhere. I mean, for her. And when her partner was, trying to tell her why, he couldn't give her any reasons, and yet he had these reasons that you could hear were his made up version of the future. But there was no there was no point where he said, what do you mean by that? Or when you say that, it really triggers me. Or is this the way you feel about that? It was based on, in her story, our story of the story. It's based on things that she may have said during the relationship, or, all of that. And I was thinking about, how what you just said, how that holds someone back. And we don't even, if you're in a new relationship, you haven't even gotten that far to know the stuff that's holding
right.
you back. And
right.
So, and actually I was going to share a quote that it's more powerful to speak up than to silently resent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really powerful, because I think that's what happened in that relationship. And I think that's what we do, and the longer we wait to have a conversation with someone, the more we build up that story or our own story about and start to resent. And that's
Mhm.
that's not an emotion you want to hold on to.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do agree.
Very interesting, because one of the things that I found was this idea of connecting from the heart, and we talk about it, and as much as we're talking about communication and speaking things, a lot of it, I believe, is our willingness to be vulnerable enough to connect from our heart. And I just share this statement: you can talk with someone for years every day, and still it won't mean as much as what you can have when you sit in front of someone, not saying a word, yet you feel that person with your heart. You feel like you've known the person forever. Connections are made with the heart, not the tongue. And I think that's a huge thing to remember in this whole thing, is that ultimately it comes down to our heart connection. And our speaking is just about helping us find our way there, I think.
I agree. I mean, but I think that's, I think that's part of our whole premise of the show, right? Love, heart, same thing. When
Right.
you being in that moment, I mean, I think that's why it's an important journey in sharing with anyone where you started. If you're starting from that place of holding on to this resentment and wanting to be right, or trying to teach somebody something, let me repeat that one, trying to teach somebody something,
What?
then, or even just trying to get them to your perspective, like it's not going to work as well as if you start from that place of love, and really, us in New Thought, a lot of times we're very tired of hearing, speak from the eye, and don't assume, and all of those things. But it's really, I mean, it's so true. It's like, if you can get to that place of just being able to start where you are, and you start with like a calm statement or a question, or the conversation's going to have a different outcome, and if you can stay respectful and honest and true, but not make somebody else wrong, it's going to end better,
Yeah, I think you made the kind of the joke about those things, but all those little things that we learn along the way are really just helping point us to shifting how we think about ourselves and others. I mean, if I'm going to speak from the eye, that means I have to really think about the fact that I'm not really saying, I'm not really, I can't really tell you what you're thinking. I can only tell you what I'm thinking. I can only tell you what's feelings for me, and that's a whole shift, because I think many of us, the way we're taught to communicate is we if you have an opinion, I'll give it to you. Yes, which is somewhere not so helpful, right?
Yeah, and I think, though, it's even a step deeper than that, because I think what you're saying is super true. But I also think, if you the thing I'm not hearing is, if I go into it with an expectation of, I'm going to explain myself and then you should understand,
Hmm.
it's not it's not going to work that way. As much as if I go into it and I'm open, I'm curious, I'm like, this is how I'm feeling, this is how this makes me feel. It really, I know, Gil, this is going to kill you, but it really doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter. I mean, to me anyway, it doesn't matter why. If my partner says to me, that made me feel like crap, I may need to understand exactly which piece or whatever, but I don't need to argue that that shouldn't make you feel like crap. You know what I mean?
What sense does that make? But yes, I hear you.
But I think that's so important. And I read some statistic that, like, if you start out a conversation, with that, if you start out a conversation well, then 90%, 96% of the conversations end well. If you're not accusing, if you're staying respectful, if you're open, and I just think that's super important.
Right. And I'm guessing the statistic is fairly similar the other direction.
Yeah.
Yes. We've all been there. We've all seen it in movies. We've all, where you just sort of cringe when somebody says something because oh my God, that's not going to go over well. And it's more because, we talked, Myrna mentioned earlier the thing about judgment and being in fear of judgment. And sometimes our fear of judgment shows up as us judging others. So if we do speak up, we're not, if we're not aware, if we're not becoming more and more aware of those things in us, then it's a potential for us to be putting it out onto others. Well, we're about done for today, aren't we? I mean, not with the topic, but with the time.
We are about done. So I think, though, what I would like to leave this conversation with is really that, to start with baby steps. If there's something you want to talk about, but to start with baby steps. It's not like you have to do it all at one thing, and it's not. I mean, because sometimes you start a conversation about one thing and it leads to another. Yeah, but you always da 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 da, and it's like, really just kind of take your time, be with what you have to say, and then let it out. If it's on your mind all the time, you need to say it. Don't let it live in the prison in your mind. Something needs to be said.
Mm-hmm. Because again, that can just go to story. I mean, you can be making up a whole story about whatever's true about whatever that thing is. And, and then you find out, oh, that's not the story at all.
And stories are a whole nother show.
They are.
So, but I want to leave you with the story, since you said that, because it made me think of a story that I read as well. And it was talking about this newlywed who read this article about, to strengthen your marriage, a couple should share and tell each other everything, that bothers them, everything that bothers them. Okay, those of us that have been married for any length of time knows, don't do that. Don't do that. But
not everything.
not everything. So at least not in one sitting. So she started, and she told her husband, they were supposed to name 5 things that they found annoying. So she started off and she told him that she didn't like the way that he ate grapefruit. He peeled grapefruit like it was an orange, and that nobody she knew peeled grapefruit like that. And could a girl really be expected to live her whole life with someone who peeled grapefruit like that? And after she finished with her 5, she turned to her husband and she said, all right, tell me the things that you dislike about me. And he said, well, to tell you the truth, I can't think of anything I don't like about you, honey. And she realized, though, like, how, you've got to differentiate what's really important. And there are things you just need to learn and accept. And there are other things that if they really affect you, then it's time to bring it up. So I just leave you with that story. I hope that you've had a good time here with us today. And
Thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate it.
just remember what Thich Nhat Hanh says, that the present moment is the only time over which we have dominion. So seize the moment and rock the love. And thank you to our producer, Michael Mangus, for being here with us every week. We love you. And we love all of you too. So thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week right here on Rockin the Love. Keep on rocking it, everybody.